I started this build by getting some little wheels off a toy car and using them alone to gauge the size of the vehicle by drawing it up on a piece of paper, and I used the wheels to do that. I just drew around the wheels and then expanded out from there so I would get roughly the size and accuracy that I was looking for. This piece around the back will be added later, but you can see I'm just drawing it in because it will show the shape. Otherwise it looks a little bit chopped off at the back. But I won't be adding that to my initial cutting out. I'm going to lay this down on a nice thin piece of cardboard, but it's strong because it's corrugated and it's just the right thickness, which will be strong enough to hold up the weight of the little vehicle. I'm going to lay it down and I'm going to trace over all the parts that I need to cut out. I'm going to pin it down so it doesn't shift around while I'm tracing, otherwise I could end up making mistakes and I wouldn't know where to cut. If you do this, make sure you pin in the windows because you won't have to have holes in your car if you cut the windows out. Trace nice and hard so you can make an impression on the cardboard. It's a little difficult to see, so I just traced it again just to make sure that it was correct. I just ran a pen through the grooves lightly so I could see, and then I cut around all the newly printed lines and popped out my template. Well, it's not really a template, it's just the initial body of the car. I'm going to cut the windows out after I actually reinforce the very thin pieces. I've got some slivered up pieces of coffee stirrer so it's really nice and strong, and I just glue them down nice and wait till they are fairly dry before I pop the windows out, so that way I'm not going to accidentally bend my thin pieces of cardboard. And now I use this one as a template, flip it over so I have opposing sides. I don't want exactly the same ones. I also use the smooth part of the cardboard for the outside, and on the inside I'm just cutting a little line so I can bend the nose of the car inward. For the roof, I've just cut another line so I can just bend it. I cut the line on the inside, so see I've got a little curve which will be on the top. It'll look like a bend and not an actual cut. I'm just putting these sort of crown shaped pieces in the front so I can give the vehicle that nice shape that it has. They're nice and secure. I can place this piece of, it's I think cereal box cardboard, so it's got no corrugations in it, which is very important because when you try to bend it when it's small like this, you'll end up with lines all through it. It's glued down quite tightly, and I need to get rid of these because they're in the wrong place because the nose of the car is narrow as it goes towards the front. So I snip them off and then I just reposition them. I could only figure it out this way. I didn't know how to make it any other way, so I just put them back on. I just marked where I was going to put them to make sure that they would both be correct. Try and keep the symmetry of the vehicle. And I also lengthened them. I used these ones as a template, the original ones that I'd cut off. I just wanted to lengthen it. They looked a little bit short, so I rectified that. And now another little piece in the front of the nose just to secure it so I can put the top of the hood on. Another little piece here. They're just, I'm really bridging the entire thing, and that's how I measured the hood. I cut it out and then I just scored a line underneath it on the underside, and then I folded it in half as neatly and evenly as possible. I very gently massaged this to get the curves into it. You can very easily see, almost there I started to get a bit of a line. Just take your time and do it very gently and slowly and you'll get the curve you want, and it can sit on the supports. And now to do the back, I'm just going to cut a hole in the back panel, and I'm going to curve it before I cut this piece out so I don't damage the pointed ends. I used a rolling pin. You can use a curved edge of a bench or whatever you like, and then just massage the cardboard so it gets a nice curve without making any lines and creases in it. The creases are on the inside, but that's okay. Now I cut the piece out that matches up to the roof so I can connect the back to the roof and then the bottom of the car as well. I also have a curve in the sides, so I need to keep gently massaging the cardboard so it becomes more pliable and a little more flexible, if that makes sense. It just allows it to be manipulated and glued into place easier than trying to force it when it's quite rigid. And then I just match it up. The gaps, of course, are where the curtains are going to be in the back. It looks a bit clunky at the moment, but it made sense at the time and did work out. I used wood glue on this and I had to mess around with it for a really long time, so I did the rest very slowly and carefully with a hot glue gun. I'm going to now cut the rest of the shape out for the back windows. It seems like a lot of counterproductive kind of working, but I couldn't figure out in my head how to do it, so I just made it up as I went, sort of thing. So that's my style. You can see that curve happening there, which is quite good. I'm going to add some plastic. I'll use the template that I cut out just to add the plastic around the rim of the window because I don't want corrugations. And cutting out cardboard, I'm going to end up with little corrugations visible all around the edge of it. Clean it up with a lighter to get the little fuzzy plastic bits off and glue it on down. The same plastic for some hinges. It's just plastic from an ice cream tub. Pop them on. Like little eyes. It looks like a face. Little window on the interior. That's just the wall that goes up inside the vehicle. You can see why I'm not putting the floor in, because I have to have access to this the entire time. So if you do this, don't put the floor in first. Using some very lightweight polyfiller to fill all my corrugations and anything that looks a little bit out of whack. Polyfiller will really clean up your cardboard projects and fills in all the little gaps. It's great. I'm going to now put the I don't know what they're called, the panels along the side, the wheel guards, and I'm just going to pop them on. I used a strip of cardboard that was longer than the vehicle because I have to allow for curving, and then you just keep manipulating the cardboard to get it a curve, and it will keep straightening out as it goes. So when you glue it down, you need to do it a little bit at a time with a bit of hot glue, just tiny little beads of it. You can see it tapers down and it goes wider at the front. I've cut a little notch out so it would fit to the vehicle. I couldn't figure out any other way to do it, so I just had to make it up as I went, but it looks correct. I've got a little bit of a foot there at the front with a cut underneath so it will bend and be nice and straight. And so you just keep pushing it and getting that curve into it. It can be a bit fiddly, but it's really worth it to get the outcome that you do. Very basic, but this is the shape, just a little strip, flat in the middle, arch at either end, and wheel guards. I've also put some filler on the wheel guards as well to get rid of all those corrugations. And now is your time before you go painting it to clean everything up as much as you can. Get rid of any little bits of the filler and fluffy bits of cardboard. Using a lighter can work on those little bits of cardboard that might be a bit fuzzy as well. Because you want it to look like a vehicle, it's got to be as clean as you can get it. It's starting to look like a car, which is excellent. I'm going to use a primer a plastic primer because I have plastic on it. And if you use shiny cardboard, you also want to use a plastic primer because it won't adhere properly otherwise. And now it looks like a vehicle. I was actually quite shocked after I sprayed it. I didn't realise how good it was going to look until this moment, and I was extremely excited. And now the wheels, back to where I began. I'm just using a crochet needle because I want this to be strong. And I just, to measure the wheels, I literally sat them underneath the vehicle, either side under each wheel guard, and then just gauged the length. Wider at the back, more narrow at the front. And of course, I'm not going to go gluing them on yet either, because I want full access to the underside of the car to insert everything. I'm going to give it a flat coat of black because I need to knock out that really shiny black colour, because it's meant to be from The Nightmare Before Christmas. You know, it's very sort of grungy and, yeah, dusty looking. Time to start doing the trim. Bit of silver lipstick. Would have been funny if it meant to be red. It would have looked quite strange. Bit on the hinges. Really simple detail, but it works nicely. And on the little interior window. And now I'm going to use the window template again, because I want to put in the curtains, which are going to be made from XPS foam. I measured it by tracing around the template and then drawing extra around the outside, knowing it would have to have somewhere to adhere. And then I drew the curtains in, and I'm going to pin it down again so it won't move. And then I'm going to trace it the same way I did with the car. I didn't freehand this window. I did with the other ones with the curtains, but I didn't freehand this one because I wanted it to be accurate and as symmetrical as possible, because it was a divided curtain and I wanted the size to be correct as well. Now that I've got my impression, I'm going to deepen it with a lead pencil. I use a pencil because it just glides nicely through XPS foam. I want to get it nice and deep if I can, without actually damaging the foam or cutting it. Use a nicely pointed pencil so you'll get a bit of a cut, but also it will sort of make an impression that's like it's beveled and softened as it comes towards the top of the impression. Because I want it to look like folds in fabric as much as possible. Even though it's a cartoonish look, I want it to look somewhat like actual curtains. I'm going to cut the centre out. And it's straight up and down, which is problematic. So as you can see, there is a gap there. It's not going to sit flush against the back wall of the car. So I'm going to bend it. I will drop a link in the description box for a video I made on bending XPS foam, or curving it, which is what I must do on these pieces. Being able to bend XPS foam makes it such a fantastic thing to work with. Gives you far more options. I've given it a coat of flat black so I can have the black in the impressions of the folds of fabric, and then just a red ochre. I used red ochre on all the curtains and the seats. You see that little curve there? And then I can sit it nice and tidily in the back. It fits lovely. If I can get it in. There we go. Perfect. I'll glue that down with some PVA glue. If you don't know, with XPS foam, only use water-based glues like PVA glue, or it will dissolve it. Tiny little curtain on the interior window, or the little peep window. These corner ones, I had to curve them as well. They look a bit like wings. I made them to fit. I traced inside the hole of the window, and then I carved them from there, or I cut them from there and curved them and painted them up and snugly fit them. They're like a custom fit, these ones. But it worked. It was a difficult angle to have to work with, but I got there. These ones are quite basic. Pop them in. And that's the curtains done. To do the seats, I used the XPS foam again, and I just drew it up and cut it out, sanded it. Same with this little radiator. I just drew it up and marked it with a pencil. I popped a little bead with a pin in the top for the radiator cap. It's really basic, but it looks good. Again with the black paint. And then the red ochre. With these, I used a template as well to draw them down, just so that they would be correct. I didn't want to go freehanding stuff and mucking around with it. It's easier to draw up a template on paper first. Get the paint out the grooves with a skewer or something if you get it in there. That's the good thing about the black underneath. You can scrape paint away and you'll have your dark lines underneath still. PVA glue and jam it in the front there. That's nice. My little support that I used to support the structure is now acting like a little resting place for the seat, which turned out really helpful. So yeah, that's good. The radiator just glued on the front, nice and neatly. It's all really starting to come together now. Gotta love the XPS foam. It's so versatile. You can do just about everything with it. I've now glued the wheels down. I glued them down with 2-part epoxy because I wanted to make sure that they would never come off. And now I'm going to put the base on. I cut that to fit as well. I just measured around and roughly drew it up, and some lines drawn in by pencil so I know I have a guide. A silver paint pen for the detail. I did tidy this up a bit later on. And the steering wheel is just an old hubcap or a rim off another toy car. It looked like a steering wheel, so I thought, yep, I'll stick that in there. Looks good. It's the right size, and that's one of the best things. Now for the bumper bar and the bull bar. I just made them out of some white polymer clay and just made a little like a snake, rolled and tapered out the ends, baked them for 20 minutes, put a little bit in the middle, baked them again, paint them up. Really, really easy stuff. Ended up being easier than I actually thought it was going to be. Looks really nice as well. Now to make the horn, I used white polymer clay again. I haven't baked it yet. But you can see I've just made it like that and tapered a little point up at the top so I can attach the actual hose. And for the shape, I just got a bit of the clay. I rolled it out, cut a circle, and basically did this with it. Cut about a quarter of it out and wrapped it round to each end, and it gave me this cone shape. So that was nice and basic as well. Now I've just made this little other piece with a hole in it so I can just attach it, and I'll just smooth it down as neatly as humanly possible. I'm going to bake it again for about another half an hour. You can see there it's still soft. I haven't stuck it in the oven. I'm going to make sure the angle's correct so it will go down through the roof. I will cut the end off that to make it nice when it's done. The little other end of the pipe I will join up once I've got it sitting down inside the roof. I'm going to give this an unceremonious coat of black paint, just slap it in the middle just so I can black it out. And I've used a pencil around the outside of the cone so I can just roughly mark out where I'm going to go, because I don't want to stuff this up. It's going to be awful. Doing black and white in contrast like that, mistakes are going to stick out like dog's balls. So I want to be really careful. I did widen these after I made all the initial first black lines. This was the most difficult thing I had to do, so it will take you time to draw all those in. I popped a hole in the roof where I want to insert the horn. And I'm going to glue this up with some super glue. And that's that done. It looks lovely too. I love that black and white stripe. For the lanterns in the back, I made a little tiny template out of cardboard, and then I just drew around a piece of foam and cut it out, drew the lines in for the little windows on the lantern, used a cream coloured paint pen to lighten each one so I can have a base to put some yellow on. And it's just a nice runny acrylic paint, and it almost sort of pools on the paint pen that I've already put down. So it's really nice. They were so quick to make too. Bit of PVA glue. Whack it on the back. The yellow looks great. Really, really nice and bright, and I was going to say luminous, but it's got the look of a lantern, which is what I was after. I like it. More easy detail. Now the little I don't even know if it's a dog or a cat or what this is, but it's polymer clay. I went and stuck a bit of steel up his little date there for it looks like a little crank handle for a tail, and I stuck him on there. The headlights, I found some thimbles and they looked exactly the right size and the right shape, so I used them. I sprayed them with some primer. Initially I was hoping the primer would actually get rid of the indentations in the back of the thimble, but it didn't. For the headlight, the cover, I just used a googly eye, the plastic bit off the front of it. I cut it off, put some more of that yellow runny paint in there, and then just glued it on. I'm one of those people that just uses whatever fits and looks correct, and most of the time it works out. For the roof racks, I used more polymer clay and steel pins because it was the easiest solution. And they look good too. And I just put some acrylic silver paint on them once I had them glued down and dried. For the little taillights, I just used some thumbtacks. I cut the pin off and I cut the end off, put a bit of a red paint pen in there, and then some PVA glue or just a dab on the top so it would give it a dome and also stop that pin from rusting in the future. And it seemed to be the correct shape. It was good. They're quite wet still. You can see that white in there. One is less dry than the other, but you know, in a few days it'll be all clear. And that's it. That's a done deal. It's been a really interesting build. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I'm fascinated to see that I can actually build a vehicle. It was one of those things I thought I would never ever do, and after doing this I realised that cardboard is a lot more versatile and the possibilities are much greater than you might think. So perhaps you could think about things that you would build with cardboard and with XPS, because they're a marriage made in heaven when it comes to scratch building. If you would like to see me build something in particular, please leave a comment and let me know. I'd love to get some inspiration from others, and I like a challenge. So yeah, please do say something if you have any thoughts on what you would like to see me create. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I do hope to see you next time.